Okay, welcome everyone to another Foreman Community Demo. We've got a packed schedule for you today, so I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to hand straight off to Lukash, who's going to show us some new discovery things. Over to you, Lukash.
Thank you, Greg. So last demo I was showing Pixie-less discovery workflow with our new fancy text use interface. Today I'd like to show you something a little bit different. We are just about to finish. I'm closing up the last bug. I'd like to thank Sachin, who made a tremendous amount of testing on this nice feature, and he found about 10 or 8 small bugs which I found, which I've fixed, and now we'll be releasing Discovery 5.4.1 and with the new Discovery Image 3.0 next week, hopefully. And this is, I would like to show another use case or another workflow which this will feature, and this is what we call unintended mode. So as you know, in Pixie-less or DHCP-less environments, we have a couple of options. We have a great Foreman boot disk, which generates various kind of images based both on iPXE or syslinux, which works great in some environments, but there are some issues with hardware drivers sometimes. And for this, you can now, with the new release of Discovery Image and plugin next week, you can leverage Discovery ISO for that. I've showed the workflows with the text user interface, so you can somehow interactively select insert network credentials. But today I'd like to show you an unintended mode. This basically works in a way that you download the Discovery ISO now. We've been providing only kernel and image run disk, but from the next week we'll be providing also the ISO file, which you can boot from the CD-ROM or a USB stick. It's a hybrid ISO, and it is, by the way, UEFI compatible, so you can boot it both on BIOSes and UEFIs. It features syslinux and grub too. So for in case FE is booting, it uses grub. But anyway, if in case you want to do some kind of unintended mode, you can use a script which we call the Discovery Remaster. It will be shipping with Discovery plugin for 1, and it has a few options. Basically, you need to run it as a root, unfortunately, but it only accepts 2 options. The first one is the ISO file you want to modify, and it creates a copy, so don't worry, it won't change the ISO if you don't want to change it. And the second option here in quotes is a list of options. Now we have a pull request pending into our Discovery documentation, which describes all the options we have. But basically, in unintended mode, you want to provide usually IP address, gateway, and DNS. So these are the FTI.pixie, IP, Pixie, gateway, Pixie, DNS. Then you usually want to provide a proxy URL and proxy type. These options are the normal options you provide when you're doing a regular discovery. And optionally, you want to provide some facts, or optional facts, custom facts if you want. So you can name them Pixie and fact name, and these will be all available during the discovery. And you also want to provide a network adapter you want to initialize. In this case, you do this via a MAC identifier. And the last bit is the Pixie Auto option. If you provide it to a 1 or yes, it will do an unintended mode, so it won't ask any questions and proceed. So something like a kickstart in Anaconda. If you don't provide Pixie Auto, it will basically let you change all the options interactively. So you'll be doing next, next, next. The next button will be focused, so you can do this quickly. And you still have an option to, for example, modify the IP, or you can even skip IP but keep gateway and DNS, and then this way you can only provide IPs. So let me, for example, delete that, and the SSH1 Red Hat password is just for debugging. And the script just unwraps the ISO into temp directory, and then alters syslinux and group configurations, adds those. Basically, this is a kernel command line option, and then wraps the ISO again and filters it through the hybrid ISO, and the newly generated ISO is also UEFI compatible. So now I want to show you that it actually works. So I have a libvirt instance here with the image already mounted. This is, by the way, UEFI, so we didn't see any BIOS, so it was pretty quick. And as you can see, we are booting now the modified ISO here, and without any key press, it will automatically discover this host. It will actually configure the network according to the configuration provided. If you omit the IP and gateway, it will automatically fall back to DNS. But in this case, it was using a static IP address and gateway. There's some warning on the top of the screen. This has been fixed. This is a little bit older build, but anyway. Now I'm on my next screen, which you don't see. I'm switching over to my discovered host list, and I'll click on auto provision. And in a minute or in a second, we'll see a kernel to be replaced with Anaconda, and this machine will be. This would normally you can turn on auto provisioning in the discovery settings, global settings, but I have this turned off from obviously for debugging purposes, because I sometimes need to connect to the image and to the running node and do some debugging. So this was not yet completely automatic, but this was on purpose. And as you can see, Anaconda started. This VM doesn't have any disks, so it doesn't start installing. But anyway, it works, and I can even show you, if you want, if you have a minute, I can show you the semi-automatic mode or attended mode, but with some. I hope to pick the correct ISO file there. Hopefully, it was the latest. And this one, as you've seen, I was booting a ISO image that I created 10 minutes before. But as you can see now, this is the image we deleted the peaks auto equals 1. So as you can see now, I'm still able to select some things, and things are already pre-selected, so I don't need to do tap. I just click on next and next and next, and but I'm still able to add effect or something. So this is something like in the middle, semi-automatic unintended mode, or I'd say semi-automatic mode. And this is it. This is our discovery image 3.0, which will be coming out next week. It will be Foreman 1.10 compatible, and but if you want to use this new discovery, it will still work with Discovery 4.0 plugin, but the reboot command, which we have changed the API, because now we have two options, kexec and reboot, so it won't reboot. So you need to use a Discovery plugin for one, which I hopefully will be able to release as a 1.9, 1.10 compatible with both Foreman versions. So if you're not going to upgrade or to RC1, or you would like to see this on your instance, you should be able to run this with Foreman 1.9. But I'll announce this in an email next week. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucas. We do have a question, and if anyone else has got them, get them in quick. So we have a question from Maxim, who asks if this new ISO now makes Foreman fully UEFI functional, or is there still more work to do?
Unfortunately not. We don't support UEFI PXE booting yet. We have a nice tutorial though. It was, I think, released on Satellite 6 blog. We don't have an upstream version of it, but there was some very nice workaround based on Foreman hooks, which I haven't tested myself. It was written by a Satellite 6 consultant, but you can use that if you want. We have also a wiki page, a summary of what we need to do to have a full PXE booting support for UEFI, and there's a list of things we need to do. So if you can help maybe with reviewing that or maybe testing that, we'll be very happy. But no support for PXE booting yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Lukasz. I don't see any other questions on the list or on IRC, so I think that's you. Thanks again. We do have a very generic question from Mario. I'm going to redirect you to the users list, Mario. I don't want to ignore you, but it's not really specific to any of the topics that we're discussing here today, and rather than derail the demo, which is already quite long, I think you're probably better asking that one to the users list. Okay, next up we have got Adam, who's going to be talking to us about some recurring actions in the remote execution plugin. So Adam, over to you.
Hello everyone. I'll just share my screen. Can you see it? Does it work?
Yep, that's fine. Carry on.
Okay, is the terminal font large enough? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so recurring actions is basically an extension of the future job execution we have in remote execution. There are some new fields in schedule job where you can select to set up a recurring job. I'll just set up one quick job to run daily in about, I don't know, 4 minutes to mark the end of my time. So, summary, right? So, consider you want to run a recurring job on a host. It's the same as with scheduling or running immediately. So you select your host, select run job, and in the new job invocation form, you fill in necessary things. Select setup recurring job, and you can provide a cron line if you know the format. If you don't, you can make your job run monthly at certain time and certain days of the month. You can tell it to run weekly at certain days and certain time. Or you can have a job that runs daily or even hourly, where you specify only the minute of the hour when it should run. Another thing you can set up is the limit of repetitions. You can limit it by the number of repetitions or by the end time. If you specify both, the repetition will stop when the first one occurs. So I'll quickly set up a job by cron line, and I'll set it up to run every minute, every day, every hour, whatever, and tell it to run 2 times and never expire. When I submit the job, I can see that we still don't know on which hosts it will run, since it gets resolved a bit later. And we can see the preview of the script. Another part of the UI is the recurring logics, which you can use to monitor when certain actions will happen and how many tasks they spawned and what their iteration and when they will end and whether they are finished. Oh, this is the first one, the one that runs every minute. You've got a notification, which is what the action should do. Now if we refresh, we can see that the minutely action is at iteration 2 and that it spawned 4 tasks. We can click at the number of the tasks and see which tasks those are. For binding these tasks to the recurring logic, we use a concept called task groups, which is a way how you can bind tasks with some kind of resource. So here we have recurring logic task group. You can create a host task group, whatever. Yeah, in the log we can see the minutely action, and it should be about time the last one appears. Oh, we can see that the one running every minute already finished, and it won't repeat anymore. Looks I set wrong time. Oh yeah, it's tomorrow. Sorry, but that's the basic functionality of it. I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam. We've got one question coming in, and that's I think I know the answer already. But this remote execution plugin is already available for CentOS 6 and RHEL, right? It works on any Foreman. No.
I do have a follow-up question. Just wondering, would it be how hard would it be to enhance the logic to have limits for how many concurrent tasks can happen in a given time, or all kind of maybe more advanced functionality of instead of defining the exact minute, maybe saying how many can run in parallel for a certain amount of time, and only then. I imagine some operation that calls a remote server like a Puppet run, where I want to distribute it and not necessarily run them all in a certain minute in the future.
Well, this would be a bit more difficult, and I guess it would be better done on different level, not on the planning level, but maybe on the time flow level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so to follow up on Mario's question, I've just been informed that EL6 is coming later, and there's currently a limitation on EL7 for the smart proxy, so that's something they're working on at the moment. Okay, thank you very much, Adam. We'll move on now to Tomasz, who's going to be talking to us about Foreman deployments.
Yeah, hello, I've got just a short message for you, but let me share my browser first. So, 2 weeks ago, very first version of Foreman deployments was released. We held a separate demo session to show what all features are included. So this is only a short recap message. Only the gem is out at the moment, but we'll hopefully get it packaged at least for RPMs soon. At the project's repository, there is some brief documentation. You can install it exactly like any other Foreman plugin. Apart from that, there is a short introduction section that describes all the terms we use in deployments. There is also a manual about how to write custom stacks that describes the YAML format and all its current features. So you can read this, and when you're done with that, there's also a tutorial about how to create, configure, and deploy your own stack. It's a short Ruby script because currently there's only API in the plugin. We don't provide an UI, and it should guide you through the process of creating, configuring, and deploying your hosts. So that's about it. We would be glad to hear any feedback and what you think about the deployment features. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Tomasz. There's no questions at the moment, but if you just hang around for a few minutes just to see if anything comes up, that'd be great. So next up is Shim, who's going to talk to us about OpenSearch.
Hi, I want to present a new extension to Foreman. It's called Foreman OpenSearch. Basically, it enables us to use Chrome's Omnibox. It's the line where you actually type the URL, and Firefox's search box that is kind of separate, to search for objects in your Foreman instance. So I'll just show how it works. All you need to do is actually type in your Foreman instance URL. So for me, it's localhost because it's a development instance. Press tab, so it goes to search Foreman, and then you can actually type the type of the object that you want to search for. So it's hosts, then colon, and then you can type any search field that you normally do in your Foreman search. Let's say all hosts that contain the letter A, and you will see all those hosts. Here they are. It's actually going to the regular search, so you will be already familiar with the syntax that you can actually use there. You can do it for any object that is contained in Foreman. So you can do it for architectures, let's say, architectures that contain X. Will bring us to the x86 architecture. That's it. That's the OpenSearch plugin. In the to-do list is enabling us to actually kind of give you some directions to do, something like we have here. And that's all. If you like it, you can use it. It's in the repositories. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Brian asks if the fancy autocomplete comes from the Foreman Search Gem or somewhere else.
For now, I don't have an autocomplete feature. The autocomplete is available only for regular search boxes that we can see here, and that one goes from search, and I think it's the scope search gem. But actually, there is a way to connect the autocomplete from Foreman to the Omnibox autocomplete. It's on the to-do list.
Okay. To clarify, this is a Foreman plugin or just a browser plugin?
It's a Foreman plugin. It doesn't need anything from your browser.
Okay. And which versions of Foreman is this available for, if any, or is it just nightly at the moment?
It's in the nightly at the moment.
So that's going to be available for 110?
Yeah, should be.
Wonderful. Okay, I don't see any other questions for you, Shim. I do have one for Tomasz from Lukasz asking if you've done some, in his words, real stack deployments. Have you got any real-world examples that you've done?
Yeah, we had a stack that installs Foreman and and smart proxy that is registered against the Foreman. It wasn't full-featured Foreman installation because currently it's only possible to do it via Puppet modules, so we couldn't enable Puppet functionality, of course, but it was just a proof of concept. In future, we hope to add also remote execution functionality into the deployments, which will enable us to do bigger things.
Okay, thanks very much. So we're moving on now to Shlomi, who's going to talk to us about SCAP updates.
Hi, I'd like to talk today about SCAP redesign. I hope you see my screen and you hear me well. Basically, I'd like to start with how it is done today, and then...
Hang on, Shlomi, I'm not seeing your screen at the moment. Do you want to just reshare? Oh, wait, there it is. It's just come up. Sorry, carry on. Although I am seeing your IRC as well, because you're sharing the whole desktop.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let me... I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. These things happen.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Oh.
Carry on.
Thank you. We're redesigning the way that we're parsing and displaying the compliance reports. I'd like to start with how it is done today and what we're planning to change. Today, the client hosts are creating the reports. It is formatted as a bzip XML. It is then uploaded to the proxy. It is pulled there as an XML file, and then it is sent with a cron job to Foreman. And Foreman, it unzips it, parses the XML with the OpenSCAP gem, and creates the report. Our main concern was that, first of all, we're saving the XML files in the database, and we thought that it would, over the time, will create some heavy lifting on the Foreman database. And it is also a big, huge process which does the unzipping and processing. So we thought of moving that into the smart proxy. So our current or our new design is as follows. The client runs as usual. It uploads the XML to the proxy. The proxy receives the report XML. It parses it into JSON, and it posts it to Foreman. It posts the JSON to Foreman. The ARF report on the Foreman side will become part of the report's STR factor. It will get the JSON data, and we'll use it in the same manner that Puppet or Chef reports are using it. The HTML and the XML views of the ARF reports will be available at the proxy. On the success of posting the report and creating the report on Foreman, we'll move the XML file to a special directory, and upon request, it will display the HTML or will fetch the XML file for downloading. In case it will fail, it will be queued and with a retry for a later trial. So basically, what will happen, and I hope that you can see my terminal, is that the client will send, will run the Foreman SCAP client, which runs the report on the client, and it will be uploading it back to the proxy. Now in the proxy itself, you could see that it says, currently it says it's failed to upload to Foreman and it's saving it in spool. That's because that part is not completed yet. But if you'll see on the Foreman side, it is getting a very big JSON with the logs, with all the data that we extract from the report, and with some data that is general to the report. So To make it short, it will look something like each log will say the source, the result, the title, the description, the severity, and at the end we will say that we'll send the matrix, which is how many passed, how many failed, and how many othered. Additionally, it's not in here yet, but with the date and so basically that's it. We wanted to give some more visibility to that change. It is more than 50% done, and we're now wiring up the part that Foreman gets the JSON and parses and puts it into the database. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Shlomi. I don't see any questions for you at the moment, but hang around. We're going to move on to Andre now, who's also got some SCAP stuff for us, I believe.
Hi, let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so I will be talking about new compliance status for hosts. OpenSCAP used to have its own icon in hosts list, but it's changed. Now we have now there's only one icon which belongs to global status. As you can see, our compliance in the bubble, our compliance status is included. This host is compliant, therefore it has a green icon. This one is not compliant, so it has a red icon. If I look at the details, we can see compliance status right here. There used to be a small table at the bottom, but it's removed and it was replaced by this line. We can see that compliance status is incompliant, therefore the global status is marked as error. There is also a new button right here that takes us to the details, hopefully. Is it asleep? Okay, let's. Oh. Now we can see the details of the policy. We can see that the last report failed with 89%, and 89% of the rules in the report failed. We can see other graph as well. If I move to the host that is compliant, we can see that all sub-statuses are okay, so the global status is okay as well. Basically, we have three options for compliance status. One is compliant, one is incompliant, and one is inconclusive. When there are no failures in the last report, then the host is compliant. When there are any failures, then it's incompliant, and when some rules are not checked and all the remaining are compliant, we are inconclusive. That's about it from me.
Is there a mode where the SCAP report did not run? That means equivalent to the out-of-date mode that we have for Puppet?
No. When, for example, this host has not yet received an RF report, you can see that the button is missing, and we mark it as compliant because in the previous version we had we marked it as compliant, and we don't want to spook users because if we change this, there could be a lot of hosts now marked as I don't know, inconclusive. So we decided to go with this option, but we have only these three options.
Okay, I mean a different scenario. The scenario I mean is that you ran SCAP once, and then for a certain amount of time you didn't run SCAP. So for how long are you compliant? Is there like a time window?
No, there's no time window. It's based on the last report that was imported.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We do have one, I think, very easy question for you. Someone Mario again, would just like to know where would you find the documentation? I assume you have a straight-up web page for that?
Well, yeah, the documentation is to be created. I believe this is waiting to be merged. So,
right.
So it will be available, but I have no knowledge that it exists already. So. Hello?
Okay, so that's great. Right, moving on. We have got, I think it's Alon next, who's going to be talking to us about Foreman Theme.
Hi everyone, I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay, so I've created a small plugin that enables user to create their own theme, basically by overriding asset path. By assets, I mean JavaScript, CSS, and images. In the following screen, you can actually see the Foreman login screen. I've created a small example of every type of assets you can override. First of all, obviously, you can see the CSS, the color has changed. By CSS, you can also override the SCSS mixin and variables. It's no problem. Second of all, you can see that the logo, the picture has changed. So you can change images also. And third is JavaScript, created like small JavaScript function. So you can do those three. Now each one of those overrides is made a bit differently. In GitHub I mentioned how to do it. I'll just show you very quickly. I'll share my Ruby mine, 1 second. Okay. So over here, basically, in order to override the image, all you need to do is place under images, under the plugin, another image with the same name. It will actually override the original image. For CSS, like the color change, now that's another thing I gotta mention. Now for CSS and JavaScript, if you want to override, you usually want to keep the original file and just write on it, because you don't want to ruin it all. You just want to change a bit of the functionality. So what we do in CSS, we always use the import, which work with SCSS, and then afterwards just make the change we want to do. And with JavaScript, it's pretty much the same, but instead of the import, the SCSS import, use the include Foreman, which is a small function that we made, and then write your JavaScript. And by the way, I also changed a bit the rename script, so you can create your own theme, and that's pretty much it.
Just a question, those functions, the import Foreman, is that available in core, or is that in your plugin?
No, it's in the plugin. It's actually a small addition. It's another addition to the Sprockets engine, just to make it a bit easier to get the path to the core files, because every time I already mentioned, every time we're overriding, we still want to keep the original files.
Okay, I think that makes maybe sense to consider that for core. So everyone who writes a plugin doesn't need to have this code.
Yeah, we can also move it to the core, it's no problem.
Okay, thanks very much, Alan. I don't see any other questions, although you are getting a lot of love for your logo. So that's awesome. Right, up next we have Amir, who's going to talk to us about some LDAP stuff he's been doing.
Hey guys, let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna show you the LDAP test connection feature I made.
Maybe just a touch bigger. Zoom in a little bit.
Yes, just a sec.
That's perfect.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you the LDAP test connection feature I made. And as you know, when you create an LDAP authentication object, the only way to test it is actually save it and then log in to Foreman and check the log for errors. And it's pretty a long way to do so. So let's demonstrate this button. Let's try to connect to Red Hat LDAP server. And we get an error, and we can see the problem is the user. So let's erase that. Try again. And we get a success connection test. And let's try something else, like changing the server address. And we get no such address error. And we can continue, like use the LDAP-S, LDAP secure, and we get an SSL, of course, error. And that's it, guys.
Wonderful, nice and quick. Thank you very much. Hang around to see if there's any questions. In the meantime, one for Alon. Brian wants to know if that what you've been doing with the theming is based on Patternfly.
Basically, first of all, it's for the Foreman core. Foreman core still, as for my knowledge, doesn't use Patternfly. But again, it's overriding JavaScript, so basically you can do pretty much whatever you want. It has a lot of power.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Martin, who's going to bring us some more updates on what he's been doing with the installer scenarios, I think.
Hi, can you hear me and see my terminal?
We can hear you, and I would go a little bit larger if you can, but it's just about okay.
Like that?
Perfect.
Okay, so a quick update on what I was doing since last demo. I was focusing mainly on situation when you like to override existing installation with different scenario. So let me show that. You can see what's on the box now. There are available two scenarios. One is Foreman, like the complete installation of Foreman, and one is Foreman Proxy, which is currently installed. Let's say we can upgrade the Foreman Proxy to full-featured Foreman instance. So we will use the right scenario. And what happened? It failed because it detected that you want to override a different the current installation with different scenario. And this can be tricky because you can lose by that step a lot of information from your installation configuration. So we try to notify users that this is potentially dangerous. This behavior can be forced with the -force parameter, and if you want to see what has changed, you can use the scenario diff parameter. I'll show that. It takes a while because it needs to find the default values for both scenarios, which mean that we need to run Puppet twice, but here we are. In the first part, you can see the values that are different. So it means that, for example, the Foreman base URL on the new scenario has this default, and when the scenarios will be merged, it will have default from the current scenario. So this means that the Foreman proxy we have installed now use the Foreman base URL set to this machine, while the new scenario has this default. Here is the list of the installation parameters that were available in the old scenario and are disabled or not present on the new scenario. You can run the installation with the force switch and fix the values that you want to have different with command line arguments, for example, if you want to trigger that. I can show you how the merge of the parameters that would be applied if I run the installation with force switch, or it can be seen in help, where we merge the parameters first and show them in the default values in the help. So we can check the Foreman proxy Foreman base URL, which is here, and we can see that the parameter was set to what we have in the current scenario. I can show you how we handle it in interactive mode. It's similar as it was before. We show first the differences between the two scenarios, which you've seen already, and offer some interactive menu to set how the installation should proceed. I'll cancel that because the installation is rather long, and that's it. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So I don't see any questions for you just now, but hang around. Oh, hang on, we just had one coming from Maxim. Do we understand this will make it more feasible to upgrade a proxy to a more full Foreman installation? I think that's the idea, right?
Yeah, this was just a basic use case that I use for testing of this. The main thing we want to do with that is to reinstall Foreman with catalog. So this will be real world use case. I'm not sure if it makes much sense to upgrade Foreman proxy to full-featured Foreman, but yeah, I use just that.
Sure, but in theory, the idea is any scenario can become any other scenario, provided you accept the
imaging NG. So quick rundown of the features. What you can do with it, you can have actually like what you know from Foreman. You can Linux installations. You can have actually HTTP or FTP installation media, what you create directly in Foreman, and you don't need any actually different other servers like WDS or something like that. You can actually use Foreman directly for every step in this project. For that to work, you have to have at least the prerequisites. I tried Foreman version 1.8+ because I think there started the possibility that you can add hosts with base 46 encoding password, because I needed for the actually encoding of the password for the root password part. And you need actually a computer. I use a VM, a Windows computer, where I'm casting from now. And I just do a short demo, hopefully later on. The project consists, so this process consists actually of two parts. First, you have to clone the repository, the vimaging.ng repository to your host, and gather all the stuff you need. You need drivers and Vim files and installation media. You have to gather all that and then configure and create the images. And later on, you have to get all the stuff, all the templates, Foreman, so actually a two-step process. So let me start first with a short rundown what you are expecting. So if you know of imaging, there's not much I have changed. I've changed some functions to get it to work, but actually all these are still there. And these are actually PowerShell scripts which hopefully help you to automate the process of creating actually your installation media. So to do it, you would clone the vimaging repository somewhere. I've cloned it to C, and then put the installation sources to the sources directory. Right now I have Windows 8.1 I want to deploy, and we also need Windows PE. You can download it for free with the Windows Automated Installation Kit. You don't need all the stuff, you only need the Windows PE image. And the Windows PE image you put just here, like the Windows PE then. After this is done, you would actually copy boot files and stuff over in this directory, and drivers you need for your hosts in the drivers directory. Maybe add some extras. For my part, I added something like extra software I want to install. Most prominently, it would be Puppet MSI, which you can directly install from there. So in the sources directory is only the install Vim, which I barely touch. Only updates are installed directly to the install Vim. That's a feature of Windows 8 actually, starting with Windows 8. So if you have met all these requirements, then you would have to modify some configuration data. I only skipped it and only make it very brief now, because you can read docs if you want to show it, want to see it. So just here you can see configure a new OS and stuff like that, and configure where your updates are located. I skipped this part also. I supplied already two configuration files, these two, which I'm actually using because this one is used in our infrastructure. So it's taken from a working environment. If you have these configurations file ready, then you only last thing you need to change is in tools, boot, root, imaging. There's a config command sample. Just open that. And this config command sample you have to rename to config command and put your Foreman instance over there. It is actually only needed for network checking, so you can put any pingable IP over there, but I think the Foreman hostname makes most sense there. Okay, so when you have all that, you can create our Windows PE Vim, because I'm emphasizing it here because it's all the work is done with this Windows PE. Actually installs everything and fetches all the other Vims. So there's a script which runs a kind of environment, a shell. I call it imaging shell. You run this as an administrator. Then you have a handy text menu ready where you can select one of these configs. So I want to select the Windows PE config. And then, because I simulate a new one, a new stuff I want to set up, I run the init works Vim PS1 script. It actually copies over all the stuff from the sources to a working directory. If this is done, I actually only need to run one other script. Called update all. And what the script does, it takes now my Windows PE image, mounts it, adds the tools to it I just showed you from the tools root, And then adds drivers, because these drivers we need later on to run our Windows image. As you can see, it's adding the drivers now, the tools were added, and then it's getting saved. And basically after that, the image is ready. One last step, which is over here then, would be to copy this boot Vim image to all the OSs you serve. Currently I only serve Windows 8.1, but you could have more, like Windows Server or whatever, or something. So there's another large script, it's called pushvim, and this pushvim script actually copies the Vim I just created as boot Vim to my vimaging ng install folder, actually in this over here. This is just what I had created now, 7. Don't worry about that one. That one is just a placeholder, you know. Otherwise, my VM would be too slow to make it in time. So this folder, the whole install folder, you would now copy to location, say HTTP or FTP server, which should be accessible to your, obviously to your host you want to deploy. And if this is done, the rest is to be continued in Foreman. I supplied a lot of, fairly a number of scripts in template, which are supposed to be added in Foreman. I just show you the ones I have. Most of it consists of the provisioning templates. And there they are. First started, so this is the script. You can define it later on. The script, this one is downloaded by the Vim, by the boot Vim, so the Windows PE, and gets executed. And actually, it uses wget to fetch the boot Vim, to fetch the install Vim, and to fetch the drivers and extra files, and get all this ready to on your host you want to deploy. And then, of course, after you have imported all this, you have to get some parameters to your. I think the best place for it is the operating system. So actually, you put parameters to your operating system. So what I have put here is like computer start OU and the domain admin account and the domain admin password to later domain join the machine. Then I have some localization stuff and an image name which I want to apply still, and all this stuff. So let's back here. Hopefully did my best to get the least requirements for the parameters you need to have. So I use in the scripts defaults where possible, but some obviously are needed. I scroll those down. You will need a Windows license key, but that one can be anything, and most importantly, you will need a Windows image. And if you just configure these parameters which are expected, then it should run out of the box. And then you have a lot of other stuff you can configure, and some stuff we use. I actually have a template which converts the host group to system OU. So the host actually gets in the same OU as the host root disk. And then, yeah, all the other stuff. So now to the provisioning templates, I had them ready, just to show what they are doing. So we already talked about the PE setup command, which is downloaded by Windows PE. It will could be rendered unattended XML from here. Sorry, it's just full screen. I will put the rendered XML file inside the to-be installed Vim image. We'll download all the drivers you need and install all the drivers. And then we will also create additional users if you want to. Put them then over here in the local users snippet. And if you have configured the correct parameters, so you need a domain admin account and a domain join account and the password, then this snippet is used, or this is as user data as user script is used, a PowerShell script which joins the machine, the host to your domain, to your Windows domain. And then I have this snippet over here. It is supposed to use by users to add their extra code. So for convenience, they can actually use the code base from the repository all the time, and so can easily upgrade their new to new forms of to new templates. And so if you put your code over here, so in my case, I'd only install Puppet, and that's it. Shortly, the time is too short to demo this, but hopefully there will be time for a deep dive later on. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Yeah, absolutely. We're considering doing a deep dive on this to get into more detail to show it all working in action. If that's something that's of interest to you guys, do get in touch and let us know, and we will we'll schedule that for sometime in the near future. I don't see any questions for you, Daniel. So I think that's everything for this community demo. Thanks to all the presenters and to everyone who's tuned in live and asked questions and taken part. If you are watching this later on YouTube, please do ask questions on IRC or on the mailing list if you have any more needs for information on anything you've seen today or on Foreman in general. This will be up on YouTube and broadcast via the usual Twitter and mailing list channels as usual. And that's all. Thank you all very much.